Chapter 5 will talk about very easy concept, which is consumer behavior. As we do in all our lecture, we have the topic outline. First of all, we will talk about the model of consumer behavior. Second, we will talk about characteristics that are affecting consumer behavior. Also, we will introduce the type of buying decision behavior and the buyer decision process as well, the steps of the buyer decision process. Finally, we have to tell about the buyer decision process, but for new products this time. Let's first start with the definition of the consumer buyer behavior. What is consumer buyer behavior? Simply, it is the behavior of the consumer. How we can predict the behavior of the final consumer. Who is the final consumer? The final consumer, those are individuals and households who are buying goods for their own consumption. I think we mentioned this in our last lecture when we talk about the consumer markets. Those referring to the personal consumption of final consumer buying for their own consumption, not to do business or to do reselling or government market or international market. No, we are talking about consumer markets. The model of consumer behavior. This model tries to explain to us how the buyer or the consumer behave. In this model, marketing and the other stimuli, here marketing stimuli, 4 P's, the product, the price, place and promotion, and the other stimuli enter the consumer black box. Black box like those of flying aeroplane, black box, الصندوق الأسود. The buyer has a black box. And then produce certain responses. Marketing management must try to work out what goes on the mind of the consumer, the black box. Here, the buyer characteristic influence how he or she perceive this stimuli. The decision-making process determines what buying behavior is undertaken. So the environment affecting the buyer black box, and then the responses is the result. Buyer response can be in the form of the buying attitude and preferences, purchase behavior, what the buyer buys, where and when and how much, and the selection of brands and the company relationship behavior. Now moving to the characteristics affecting consumer behavior. We have actually 4 groups of factors that affect the buyer. Our buying decisions are affected by complex combination of internal and external influences. They are grouped into cultural, social, personal, and psychological. Let's start with the first group of characteristics that affect consumer behavior, which are the cultural factors. The cultural factors includes the culture, which is the basic values, perception, wants, and behavior learned from family and other important institutions. You can say that the culture is like one country's culture, okay, that affect all residents in this country. Also, we have the subculture. Subculture are groups of people within a culture, which with shared value systems based on common life experience and situation. We can call it a subculture like in a country, we have a culture and we have different areas, north, south, west, towns, cities, suburban areas. Each part of this country has a subculture of itself. So within the general culture, we have this culture. Both culture and subculture affect the buying behavior of consumer. Concerning the cultural factors, we have this research that was conducted to analyze and compare cultures across the world. They used in this research, beside the rest of the world, they included 7 Arab world countries. They are Egypt, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. They identified 5 dimensions. They compared the culture across the world and the Arab countries according to these dimensions. For example, the first dimension is the power distance index. The power distance index, it is called PDI, and they identified a high, very ranking in the Arab world. This indicates that high levels of inequality of power and wealth. People expect and accept that leaders will separate themselves from the majority. Another dimension, it is the Uncertainty Avoidance Index, the UAI. Also, this research identifies a high level of index. This indicates, in the Arab world, of course, this indicates that people are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and strict rules, laws, policies, and regulations are put in place to minimize or reduce their level of uncertainty. They also use the individualism dimension, the masculinity dimension, and the long-term orientation dimension to classify and compare the culture across the world and the Arab countries. Now moving to the social class. It is one of the social factors. The social class is a society relatively permanent and ordered divisions whose members share similar values, interests, and behaviors. This social class affects the buyer behavior, and all the group in one social class tend to react the same way and do buying behavior in the same way. Social class could be a combination of occupation, income, education, and the other variables. The Arab world example, social classes in the UAE. For example, we have the nationals, al-Muwataneen, and we have the foreign immigrants. This is a kind of differentiation or different social classes and accordingly different customer behavior. Now we finished the first group of factors, which is the cultural factors. Let's move to the second, which is the social factors. Among the social factors, we have here groups and social networks. For example, we have many groups that affect our buying behavior, such as, for example, the membership groups. Membership group is a process which usually either informally and formally accepts members into its ranking, granting them membership. Like, for example, clubs, societies, teams, and political parties. The second type of group is the aspirational groups. Aspirational groups refers to those against whom one would like to compare ourselves. For example, many firms use athletes as spokesperson, and these represent what people would like to be. The third type of group is the reference group. The reference group includes parents, siblings, teachers, peers, associates, and friends. That groups that form a comparison or reference in forming attitudes or behavior. Another factor in the social factors, which is the word of the mouth and the buzz marketing. Word of mouth means that if one experiences a good experience and he recommends something to others, like opinion leaders do. When opinion leaders, or sometimes we call them influencers, lead people to buy certain products they had good experience with. Marketeers identify them to use them as brand ambassadors. We find many influencers on Instagram and on Snapchat. Also, in social factors, we have this online social networks. Of course, social networks now are communities which attracts many people, such as blogs, social networking like Facebook, and the virtual world. Also, among the social factors, we have family, which is the most important factor affecting the consumer behavior. Also, we have the social rules and the status, the social rules which defines what we really are. Moving to the third type of factors, which are the personal factors. Among the personal factors, we might find the age and the life cycle. Of course, a person is different. All persons are different according to their age of what type of products they are buying. For example, the buying behavior of a small kid is different than the buying behavior of an adult, and of course also it is different than from the elderly people. Also, the life cycle stage. If somebody is single, his buying behavior is different than when he is married and when he is married with children. So people change the goods and services they buy according to their age and according to lifestyle. Their taste in food, clothes, furniture, or even in their cars is affected by these factors. Among the personal factors, the occupation. The occupation, of course, affects the goods and services bought by the consumer. Also, their economic situation, which includes personal income, personal savings, and the interest rates. Among the personal factors, also the lifestyle. Lifestyle means the pattern of living of the person himself. So it affects what people buy, what people eat, and what people want to be. We have here a measurement of the AIOs, the activities, interest, and opinion. This measurement used by organizations in order to capture information about the person patterns of acting and interacting to the environment. Hence, they will predict their consumer buying behavior. Also, among the personal factors, we have the personality and the self-concept. What is personality? Personality is the unique psychological characteristics that lead to consistent and lasting responses to the consumer environment, such as his self-confidence, sociability, autonomy, defensiveness, adaptability, and aggressiveness. However, the self-concept is his self-image. Is the people's possessions contribute to and they reflect their identities. That is, we are what we have. Also, we have here the brand personality. The brand personality means these brands like sincerity, excitement, competence, these are called the brand personality. Is a specific mix of human traits that may be attributed to a particular brand. So these traits all mix together to contribute to this brand, to make this brand. For example, when somebody is characterized by being sincere, so he is a mix of being down to earth, honest, wholesome, and cheerful. Somebody is branded in the excitement personality. So he's daring, spirited, imaginative, and up to date. If somebody is competent, so he is reliable, intelligent, and successful, and so on. If he is sophistication, so he is upper class and charming. Ruggedness, he's outdoorsy and tough. So these are the brand personalities, and this mix of traits and attributes to this brand personality. Okay, now moving to another group, which is psychological factors. We want to differentiate between motivation, perception, learning, and beliefs and attitudes. The first psychological factor is the motivation. What is motivation? Simply, motivation is الحافز or the stimuli or the drive that urge person or press person to seek satisfaction. Motivation is the need, the motive is the need that is sufficiently pressing and urging to direct the person to seek satisfaction. We have many motivation research in psychology and in marketing. We have many researches that explain the human needs and why persons buy products. The most important motivation research designed to see this need or explain these needs is Maslow hierarchy of needs. Here is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. He classified the human needs into 5 groups of needs, starting from the bottom, which is the physiological needs. We cannot live without it. And safety needs, social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. Also, among the psychological factors, we have the perception. The perception is the process by which people select, organize, interpret information to and from a meaningful picture of the world from 3 perceptual processes: selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. Before we explain these, we have to know the perception, اللي هو الإدراك, how we perceive things around us, how we understand and interpret the world around us. We interpret the world around us through these 3 processes. We explain one by one. The selective attention. Selective attention includes listening carefully to what someone is saying while ignoring other conversation in a room, for example, or listening to a cell phone conversation while driving a car. Attention is one of the most intensely studied topics within psychology and cognitive neuroscience. Selective attention means that we pay attention to some surrounding factors and ignoring some others, depending on our tendency to select. The second one is a selective distortion. Selective distortion means that every customer fits incoming stimuli into their own mindset through their own set of beliefs. Selective distortion is a tendency for people to interpret information in a way that will support what they already believe or what they want to believe. Moving to the third one, the selective retention. Selective retention means that consumers will usually forget much of the stimuli they have been exposed to. Consumers will usually store the information that best support their existing attitudes and beliefs, or the ones they want to have. So, selective retention always make them always remember the good points they favor and forget the negative points they have been made about other brands that they do not like. Among the psychological factors also we have learning. Learning, we know learning as the acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, experience, or being taught. In psychological terms, learning is the change of individual behavior arising from experience and occurs through interplay of many factors like drives, stimuli, cues, responses, and reinforcements. Also, we have these beliefs and attitudes. The belief is a descriptive thought that a person has about something based on his knowledge, opinion, and faith. Belief, what is his beliefs? Based on what he knows or what he thinks, or even the faith, or based on his religions. But attitudes describe a person's relatively consistent evaluations, feelings, and tendency toward an object or idea. Both beliefs and attitudes have great effect on the consumer buying behavior. For example, based on his belief believes someone may eat or not eat certain types of food. Types of buying decision behavior. We have 4 types of buying decision behavior. We have the complex, dissonance reducing, habitual, and the variety seeking. We will explain the 4 types in a minute. Here this matrix explains the 4 types of buying behavior. Here we have the complex, the variety seeking, dissonance reducing, and the habitual buying behavior based on 2 important factors. The first factor, if there is a major differences between the brands. Major differences or no differences between the brand. The second factor is the product, how much consumer is involved with the product. For example, in the complex buying behavior, this buying behavior varies greatly for different types of product. Like for example, when here we are buying a very expensive PC. So we might undertake full information gathering before buying. That's why it's called complex, because there are significant difference between brands and high involvement. At the contrary, at the other hand, we have the habitual buying behavior. The habitual buying behavior, it is created when we are buying these products as a habit. For example, you are buying every day bread, milk, newspaper. So these products are low involvement with the consumer, low involvement products. So the consumer here may simply select a familiar brand just out of habit, like the kind of the brand of the milk you are buying every day. If you don't find, you might buy another familiar brand just out of habit. So these 4 types of buying decision behavior, they actually reflect the involvement with the product and the differences between brands. Moving now to the process, how the consumer is making his choice. Actually, it depends on 5 different steps. The first step, which is the need recognition, the information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and finally, the post-purchase behavior. Let's first start with the first step, which is the need recognition. The purchase decision starts when the consumer feels that he needs something. When he realizes that there is a problem that needs to be solved. This problem or this need is triggered by either internal stimuli or external stimuli. Then he moved to the information search. I need something, so I try to search for information about product to satisfy such a need. The sources of information may include personal sources like family and friends around me, commercial sources like advertising in the TV, the public source like mass media and consumer organization, and from the experience, handling, examining, and using the product before. The third step is when you evaluate the alternatives. After you search about the alternative, you are trying now to evaluate the different products you find in your search journey. Now, the consumer possesses information to arrive at brand choice. Finally, we want to choose a final brand. So, depends on the individual customer and the specific buying situation, of course. We select a brand, we move to the purchase decision, which is the act by the customer to buy the most preferred brand. The purchase decision can be affected by attitudes of others and unexpected situational factors. After we buy, either you have a satisfied experience or dissatisfied experience. So the satisfaction or dissatisfaction that the consumer feels after the purchase is called the post-purchase decision. This satisfaction or dissatisfaction is related to the customer expectation and the product performance. The larger the gap between the expectation and the performance, the greater the customer dissatisfaction. Also, we have post-purchase decision, we have the cognitive dissonance, which is the discomfort caused by a post-purchase conflict. The customer satisfaction here is a key to building a profitable relationship with customers, to keeping and growing customers and reaping their customers' lifetime value. The final topic in our lecture is the decision process, however, for the new products. The previous 5 steps we have mentioned were for the products we buy every day. However, does it make a difference if the product is new? Let us see. First, let's define what is a new product. A new product is a good, a service, idea that is perceived by some potential customers as new. Sometimes we have a new product, not totally new. However, it was existing before, however, it has new features. Or it could be a new innovation. So this is the definition of a new product. In order to adopt this new product, we have to go into a long mental process. Some individuals and some customers go through from first learning about the innovation to the final regular use of such innovation. Let's go through this adoption process. It starts with the awareness of the product, then having an interest to search for some information about this product, then evaluation of the product, trying it, and finally adoption. In every new product adoption process, there are individual differences according to their willingness to approve or to take innovations. Every company or every organization willing to provide a new product, they should search about those types of people, innovators and early adopters. Although they are only 18% or 19% of the whole population or the whole customers, however, the company should search for these innovators and early adopters who are willing to try new innovations before other customers. And those early adopters and innovators, they will convince the other population to try this product. So new product marketeers often target those innovators and early adopters who will influence the late adopters. Of course, there is an influence of product characteristics on the rate of adoption. For example, if the product has a relative advantage over other products, this will expedite the rate of adoption. Also, the compatibility with this product characteristics with other, the complexity of the product, the divisibility of the product, and the communicability of the product. All these are product characteristics that definitely influence the rate of adoption, expedite the rate of adoption, or delay the rate of adoption. And by reaching this slide, we have come to the end of our lecture today. I'm looking forward to see you in a new lecture. Thank you and goodbye.